Hi everyone, my name is Gabriel and I have been a dungeon master for over 25 years. And this is the Hour of the Raven, your channel for everything Ravenloft, RPG, Dungeons and Dragons, and horror. In our first episode, we'll discuss what is Ravenloft and why this scenario is one of the most relevant of the Dungeons and Dragons world. Hour of Raven. Ravenloft is a campaign setting that inserts gothic horror into the world of Dungeons and Dragons, bringing to the adventurers some dark elements and mature themes. By adapting horror themes from folklore and literature from around the world, the setting offers the players a different kind of experience and fun. The players are still the heroes of this bleak world, but also have to survive in a tragic and oppressive landscape marked by horror and hopelessness. The Ravenloft setting encourages the dungeon master and players to enter an atmosphere of horror and tension. It is recommended to the game master to use narrative techniques to improve the tension environment and to describe the scenes more vividly in order to seek a greater immersion of the players in the game. For instance, a game master should not simply tell the players that a character in the plot turns into a werewolf. Describe the character's restlessness as the evening draws near, give it striking traits and a backstory, and gradually reveal the tragic results of the previous attacks of the lupine beast. Only then, at the right time, describe his hideous screams as his body undergoes a horrendous transformation. Ravenloft fits into the cosmology of Dungeons and Dragons as a demiplane, a parallel reality surrounded by mysterious mists, through which no one can escape, either physically or magically. An unknown entity called the Dark Powers govern these mists, and by their design they may swallow to the misty planar prison people, monsters, gods, or even whole kingdoms. The true nature or motivation of the Dark Powers has never been revealed, and various portions of the known world of Dungeons and Dragons have been engulfed into the mist plane, or perhaps even entirely recreated by the mists, to serve as the prison and torment of the poor souls who inhabited these lands and its infamous Dark Lords. The main prisoners of Ravenloft are the Dark Lords, beings involved in great tragedies and acts of cruelty, who for some reason aroused the attention of the Dark Powers and were imprisoned to the plane of the mists. Whenever a new Dark Lord is swallowed by the mists, they also bring to the misty plane the lands of a new dominion, a kingdom that will serve as a base of power and imprisonment for the new Dark Lord. The Dark Lords are bestowed with great power by the mists, but are eternally bound to their kingdoms and doomed to eternal suffering. In addition to their imprisonment to their own lands, the Dark Lords are cursed beings, bound to destinies that are repeated in an eternal cycle of suffering. Count Strahd von Zarovich is a Dark Lord and the first prisoner of these lands. The character is an adaptation of the vampire Dracula to the world of Ravenloft. Once a great warrior and conqueror, he yielded to dark pacts to prevent the advancement of his age, and thus fight for the love of the young Tatiana, the bride of his younger brother Sergei. His evil deeds have led to the murder of his brother and to the suicide of his beloved, and now he is condemned to eternal life as a vampire and cruelly rules the lands of Barovia, a kingdom inspired directly from the lands of Transylvania with an Eastern European medieval flavor. The cursed Count always finds reincarnations of his beloved Tatiana, and because of his eternal torment by the Dark Powers, they end up invariably dying by his own actions. Other domains have been engulfed by the mists, and are gradually being revealed as neighbor kingdoms to the lands of Barovia, where other powerful Dark Lords rule their lands, inspired by other themes of horror drawn from literature, folklore, and the many worlds of Dungeons and Dragons. In the lands of Sithicus, Lord Soth is a Death Knight, a kind of Nazgûl for the world of Dungeons and Dragons, and walks alone in his haunted fortress, plagued by the specters of banshees that every night come to recite to the fallen knight the reasons of his doom and dishonor. In the land of Lamordia, Dr. Victor Mordenheim is a mad scientist, capable of animating dead bodies into life with his insane scientific experiments, but unable to save his wife from a vegetative state, maintained alive in constant agony by the strange machinery created by her husband. Adam, the monstrous golem, is his first creation and haunts the snowy landscape, leaving a trail of murder and destruction wherever he passes. In the realm of Darkon, the powerful Lich King, Azalin Rex, rules the largest realm of the continent, but despite sacrificing his family and life for arcane power and knowledge, he finds himself imprisoned in these realms, unable to study and understand any new magic, however banal and simple the incantation. The variety of themes and horror tropes adapted to the RPG is one of the most interesting elements of the setting. Through the Ravenloft world, it's possible to find the most diverse domains and Dark Lords, from ghosts of a disgraced shogun and werewolves and witches from Russian folklore to deserts ruled by great mummies of pharaohs. The Lands of the Mists offers a wide range of options for the most diverse types of adventures. Another important element of the campaign setting is the introduction of a different cultural level between the domains of the Lands of the Mist. While the distant deserts of Harakir may resemble the ancient Egypt in the Bronze Age, the lands of Barovia, ruled by Count Strahd, has a typical medieval look, while other domains may already be in the Renaissance era or even more advanced cultural times. This variety of the cultural level of the domains can introduce an interesting cultural clash to the characters in the game and allows to the introduction of game rules for firearms and other inventions of the time, allowing a lot of options to a game master explore. In the Land of the Mists, the heroes must also be concerned with the preservation of their sanity and their souls. The heroes must face horrors that can tear apart their sanity, and the game presents mechanics for a character to test for fear, horror, and madness. Fear defines a more immediate reaction to the hazards and situations encountered, such as fainting, paralysis, or screaming. Horror, however, points to the consequence of the inability of his character mind to accept and understand the revelations to which it has been exposed, translating into outbursts of absolute revulsion, obsessions, or attacks of murderous fury. Madness, on the other hand, deals with the permanent consequences of the disruption of sanity and can assume the most diverse forms. Those who stare directly into the abyss must also be careful not to become the very evil they are fighting. The battle against the forces of evil are also waged within each adventurer, for there is a chance that the evil deeds of the heroes may attract the attention of the dark powers, who can gradually give them powers while transforming them into monstrous beings, reflecting their own distorted souls. In terms of game mechanics, Ravenloft creates a system of power tests, establishing a chance for acts considered evil to attract the attention of the dark powers. Often, the horror to be fought is not the one created by the evil creatures that abound in the land, but the one born within the adventurers. Many argue that Ravenloft's setting is not for beginners, either because of its mature gothic and horror themes, or because of the difficulty to storytelling and role-playing in this horror setting. The effective use of horror in a narrative demands from the game master a domain of rhythm and narrative descriptions, and the players, to effectively role-play elements of fear and horror, must be dedicated to the game and immersed in the scenario. This should not discourage you from attempting to venture into the sinister land of the mists. When the first adventure module of Ravenloft was published, it was considered revolutionary because of the attempt to insert gothic horror elements into the classic adventure of Dungeons & Dragons, create a memorable and tragic villain, and modify how the players faced the challenges of the adventure. In this setting, it is sometimes more exciting to interact and dialogue with a great character or villain played by the storyteller, adding narrative weight to the decisions made by the players, than to battle every enemy along the way. Anyway, the goal of the game is always to have fun, and you and your group should always have in mind that you can adopt any style of play that best suits your game table. Some say that Ravenloft is a great setting for quick adventures or one-shots, in which heroes are swallowed up by the mists and must escape at all costs from this grim reality. I understand that such adventures can be excellent, especially as a means of briefly introducing darker horror themes into an ongoing campaign, or even as a special Halloween adventure. However, if you do identify with horror themes, I do not see any difficulty in creating entire game campaigns in this scenario. I act as a dungeon master of a 15-year-old campaign entirely set within the world of Ravenloft, and I believe the setting is rich enough to allow long narrative arcs. Whatever your style of play, welcome to the Land of the Mists. In the next few episodes, I will continue to explore the history, the domains, the Dark Lords, and the characters of these dark places. Come along if you dare, and please subscribe.